with our website for your easy reference to all the stuff that's going on here. Here's an announcement for parents. We especially welcome families and young children. Today, children and youth are invited to bring toys and books found in the back part of the social hall, to their seats while they stay in the service with their parents. But here's some really good news. We have enough volunteers in our nursery to offer care for infants and children under 5 all summer long. Yay! The flowers today, we speakers, you'll see us later, we give in gratitude for being selected to serve as your delegates to the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly this year. It was both a pleasure and an honor to serve in this capacity. Thank you very much. And now please silence any electronic devices that might interrupt us today. And now stand and join me in the congregational covenant found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. We are a covenantal religion, which means that we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. Our community is based on deeds, not creeds. As Unitarian Universalists, we side with love, embracing all people regardless of age, color, race, socioeconomic status, physical ability, or religious background. We have been officially designated by the Unitarian Universalist Association as a welcoming congregation that welcomes LGBTQ+ individuals. Now, let's recognize those who do the work of the congregation very quickly. Will board members and also committee members, let's all stand at the same time to save some time. If you're a committee not member but chair and you're a board member, for those of you who are wondering, well, how do I tell who is a board member? Board members should have green name tags, and they welcome your comments and suggestions. Thank you. Now, at this time, we'd like to recognize any guests or visitors who are with us today. So visitors, if you're willing and able, please rise and share with us your name and where you're from. And if you have guests with you, please feel free to introduce them and wait for the microphone. Reverend Stephen has microphone. Thank you for standing.
What was I supposed to say?
just your name and maybe where you're from.
Hi, my name is Faith, and I'm from Lexington, and thank you.
Thank you, welcome.
Hello, I'm Nancy Nicholson from Charlotte.
Oh. Okay. Anyone else? There was somebody way in the back, but they sat down. No, that's okay. Well, welcome Faith and Nancy and everyone else, whether you stood or not, you're welcome. Okay. So visitors, you don't have to, but we'd love to have you fill out a visitor card and put it in the collection plate. Those visitor cards should be found in front of you, in the back of the chair in front of you in a little pocket right there. There should be a pencil or pen there as well. And if you do that, we'll respect your privacy, but we will use your information to send you our weekly newsletter, which we sometimes call an e-blast, and other information about things that are going on here. So that's what that's all about. So we encourage everyone to wear name tags. I find it extremely helpful. It helps me remember everybody's name. And new people, it helps me to know your name. So at this time, let's take a moment to greet each other and stand and offer a pleasant greeting to everybody around you. Okay, please be seated. There'll be more time for socializing after the service, so if you'll please be seated, we'll go along with the service today. Thank you. Thank you, and please be seated. We'll have time for socializing after the service, so if you will please be seated, I will thank you so much. Today's chalice lighter is the Reverend Stephen Robinson.
So I think everyone knows, and for those who are visiting with us, and maybe first time at a UU congregation, the chalice is the symbol of our faith, our denomination, but also very much a symbol of our congregation here at the UUCC. We light it every Sunday, and it really marks the point in the service where we begin the actual part of the service after all the announcements and welcoming and everything has been completed. It is really an invitation on so many levels to invite the spirit of who we are, of light and life, into this place to bring us together in this beloved community. It requires a lot of things. So sometimes you may see someone on Sunday morning making sure there's oil in the chalice, making sure there's a light to get the chalice lit. Different people do different things around here. So the chalice itself, the actual tangible chalice, has so many needs around someone making sure that it's ready to go on Sunday morning when we light it. The last thing that we want to happen is to say we light the chalice and it not light, right? Or look around and, you know, we always have that stress of we have a lighter back there, but, you know, those never work when they're supposed to. So I'm so thankful to Don that comes and lights this candle for us to get the chalice lit every Sunday. I like to think about the leadership of this congregation as responsible for the chalice, since this is the symbol of our faith, not so much in a tangible, literal level, but in a way of thinking about if this represents who we are, then really the board and the committee members, and particularly the board, are the custodians of this chalice. They are the ones responsible for its upkeep, protecting it, keeping it burning bright, for our congregation to do all that we need to do. So it's very appropriate this morning as we get ready to recognize our outgoing board and install our new board that I light this chalice as a honor and a privilege to be able to serve with the ones who have served over the past year, and excitement and joy for the custodians, the keepers of the chalice that are about to take place. Spirit of light and life, come unto us. This time I would like to ask the outgoing board, I'm going to call them by name if they will make their way up front. Our president over the past year has been Deb Matherly. So ask her to join us up here. Her president-elect, Mark Drews. Our secretary is Karen Brown. The treasurer, Jenny Verne. The past president, who serves a year in term, is Pat Mohr. And then our regular members, Jean Capalbo, Caroline Eastman, Regina Moody, Emilio Jorge Perez, and Nancy Shillington Perez. If you will, and if you are able to stand, please join me in standing and showing your appreciation to this group. Thank you. You can be seated. Not you. You all stay. So we have a few people that are rotating off, and we will let them be seated. Emilio is rotating off, and you will recognize the relief on their face. I don't even have to write it down. I can just look down and know, whew, we're done. Jean Capalbo, Caroline Eastman, yep. And then Pat Mohr has finished her term as past president. Again. So, with the president-elect moving into the role of president, Deb will be passing off the talking stick to Mark Drews as past president, or as president. So thank you, Deb, for this great year of service for our congregation. The talking stick means that only the person that holds it can do the talking, and we never follow that at a board meeting. So we might want to call it the irrelevant stick. So adding new members to our board, and excited about that. George Johnson, Johnny Matchett. You have to stand up? All the way up here, Johnny. And Susan Legacy. And then moving into our role of president-elect is John Logue. And then Jeanette Walton is coming up. She is moving into the role of treasurer. And Jenny Verne will stay on the board as an ex officio member and chair our finance committee. So this is your new board. Hold your applause, if you were thinking about it. And please join me with the insert that we have in our program as we install our new board for this upcoming year of the UUCC. In a free and religious community, to serve is the highest expression of our commitment to love and love. To be asked to lead is the highest honor. This morning, the members of the UUCC have chosen this group to serve as the board and lead us in the coming year. The relationship between a congregation and board is one of deep respect and mutual regard. You have asked them to take on the holy work of discernment and guidance. They need you to support them in their work, share ideas and concerns in love, and to offer them trust as they fulfill their office faithfully. The work of the UUCC is the work of the people. It is the work of building the world of which we dream. It may require time spent poring over budget sheets, hours spent in meetings where small details are hashed out. It may manifest in shared laughter or outright frustration from time to time, but all of it is sacred, for it is in the pursuit of the beloved community. As a symbol that the work is always shared, we will engage in the ritual of blessing and installation. Service is an act of faith. Service done faithfully in love is the work of justice and community building. This is what you have asked of these people before you this morning, that they serve you faithfully and well. To do this, they need your trust and support. So I ask now the members and friends of the UUCC, Will you offer love and trust to your board, responding when they seek your input, showing up when they tell you that work needs to be shared, and listening carefully when they speak of the life of the UUCC? If so, please respond, we will. We will. To the members of our new board, will you be diligent and faithful in your work, bringing your best selves and practicing self-care and open-heartedness, tending with love and details of the work, and always keeping the goal of beloved community in front of you as you serve? If so, please respond, we will. May the spirit of love guide you in the coming year. May a spirit of joy infuse you in the work that you engage, and may your service bless the UUCC, our community around us, and our world. Give a big hand to our board. Thank you for the year ahead.
Thank you so much. Today's speakers are your 3 General Assembly delegates. I'm speaking of the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association, which this year took place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and also online. The speakers are Deb Matherly, Pat Mohr, and I, Linda Brennison. Each of us has served this congregation in many capacities. We are all past presidents of the Board of Trustees and past attendants or delegates to the yearly General Assembly. We hope to give you a sense of all that occurred at this year's assembly and share some of what we learned. In our search for truth and meaning, we will each present a personal perspective for your consideration today. And now, opening words from Deb Matherly.
And we may want to leave room for the opening hymn. If you would like to join me before the opening words.
I'm so sorry, yeah. Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you, Anna.
Shall we sing together our opening hymn number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire? And I invite you to stand as you're willing and able to join in singing.
Deb Matherly.
For our opening words, true belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. By Brene Brown. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, I hope I'm not leaving anything out, but I do believe it's time for the story for all ages, which will be presented by Pat Mohr. So if there are any children who wish to come down to the front and share a story with Pat, come on down.
Children of all ages can come down. She's my Vanna. This is called Whatever Comes Tomorrow. Tomorrow may bring endless sun or swirly, snowy skies. Tomorrow may bring hellos or difficult goodbyes. Tomorrow may bring loneliness or laughter with a friend. Tomorrow may bring words that wound or ones that heal and mend. Tomorrow may bring changes that are scary, strange, or new. Tomorrow may bring chances to embrace your truest true. Tomorrow may bring obstacles that seem too hard to face, or tomorrow may bring feelings that'll need some extra space. Tomorrow may bring questions that you have no answers for, or answers that may lead you to more questions than before. Tomorrow may bring anything. You have no way to know, and sometimes that uncertainty gives worries room to grow. They sprout and blossom. Consume your mind. You want to run and hide. But you've confronted fear before and reached the other side. You cannot control what happens next, the what, the where, the how. The only thing in your control is you, right here, right now. You take a breath, you close your eyes, you whisper, I am strong. You tell those worries in your head, I know I can, you're wrong. And when tomorrow disappears, becoming yesterday, you know for sure that you can endure whatever comes your way. Tomorrow may bring laughter, love, confusion, fear, or fun, an angry, rainy hurricane, or a peaceful seaside sun. Whatever comes tomorrow, however steep the hill, you'll find your path, you'll journey on, you'll make it through. You will.
Thank you. And now we're going to celebrate Candles of Community. If you have a significant personal joy, sorrow, or concern you would like to have shared from this pulpit, particularly those on streaming, you can email or text our minister by noon on Friday. If you are here in person and would like to speak for yourself, you should pick up a candle in the basket at the entry table and come forward to speak briefly. And we do ask you to please speak briefly. We are having a long service today, and in consideration of everyone's time, brief joys and sorrows is greatly appreciated. And now, please come forward.
Yes, my name is Morgan. I would like to light a candle of concern from my friend Alvin Steingold. Some of you know Alvin. He attends here sometime, although he's a member of the Tree of Life. He suffers, as you may know, from Parkinson's disease and also prostate cancer. And he says that, or tells me that his Parkinson's symptoms are growing worse. So I'm concerned about him, and I'd like to light a candle for him.
It's our daughter Lena's first birthday this week. Say happy birthday when you see her. She won't know what it means, but she'll be happy about it.
I'm Caroline Eastman, chair of our Green Committee, and I have a joy and a concern. My joy is that we are now a Gills Creek watershed champion with a nice sign facing Woodrow. Check it out. Okay. And my concern is that on August 2nd, we will have spent all our money. Okay, before you dig out your checkbooks for the offertory, I'm not talking about dollars. I'm talking about Earth's biocapacity. We will have used up this year's soon. Check out our table. Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you that we did get a house. And one extraordinary thing happened. Regina was looking through some albums because of trying to find the history of this piano before we give it away. And out popped a picture of the two girls, my daughter and the girl who I spoke about last week. How weird is that? That was Monday. Anyway, but also I wanted to say how nice it's been to be here. I'll be back in October. But Joel texted Lee today and said that he and Alex have arrived home safely. What a wonderful trip it was. So, do what can.
It's a candle of joy. Our cup's high priestess, Katie Long, just had a baby, but the issue was that there was complications with the delivery, and the baby was in a hospital for about a month on life support, and she just came home last Sunday. And the baby and the mother and the dad are doing great.
If someone, Stephen maybe, or someone could come up and light one final candle. Oh, thank you, Emilio. We light one final candle for those joys and concerns that remain silent in our hearts. To ponder these joys and concerns, let us pause for a moment of silent meditation. This congregation contributes to Share the Plate, where half of our cash collection each Sunday goes to local charities, a way for us to give back to the community we live in. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Justice 360. And here to tell us about all the good work of Justice 360 is Sierra Negron. Sierra, would you come up?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sierra, and I'm the legal assistant at Justice 360. We are a South Carolina nonprofit. We are actually local to Columbia, dedicated to the advancement of equality and reformation of the criminal justice system. We focused on the most extreme sentences in the state, specifically death penalty appeals and juvenile cases where children are facing spending the rest of their lives in prison. Our mission is to provide legal representation to these groups. We accomplish this by direct representation as well as training other attorneys who may be representing these types of cases. In addition, we focus largely on advocacy for policy change and awareness within the legislature and work alongside other social justice groups. Lastly, we engage in raising awareness of sentencing issues such as racial disparities in sentencing, how the state plans to carry out executions, and the reforms necessary to protect children from life in prison. All of our clients are indigent. They are children who cannot pay for legal representation, especially when facing such extreme punishment. and men who cannot afford the level of representation necessary when the state is seeking their death. We cannot provide representation for these clients or raise awareness for this racial, socioeconomic, and other disparities in the legal system without generous support from people like you. Thank you for allowing me some time to share more about our organization. We are very appreciative of your support and hope that we will be able to continue to reach out to other community members as we continue to fulfill and expand our mission. I will be around for a few minutes after service. If anybody has any questions, I am happy to talk. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. If you're contributing to Share the Plate, please write Share the Plate on the memo line when you put a check in our offering today, or on the envelope if you contribute by cash. You can also find the link on the UUC website, uukolumbia.org. That's the website I've been mentioning a few times. It's uukolumbia.org. Ushers, please come forward.
Our offertory music is the song I Am Willing by Holly Near. And you're invited, if you catch on and choose to sing along for the chorus. I think the words are in front of you on the screen. I'll tell them to you. I am open and I am willing. For to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There is hurting in my family. There is sorrow in my town. There is panic all across the nation. And there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly. May the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. I am open, I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change.
We receive these gifts with gratitude and appreciation, as it demonstrates that we truly are a giving community. I couldn't see them. That was what I was trying to tell you. Are they showing up? They're showing up there? Okay, so. All righty. Just a little technical issue. Sorry about that. What you're seeing up there now is our two of our delegates that went to Pittsburgh in person. I went online, stayed right here in my own living room. But they have, at General Assembly, they have a banner parade, and Deb and Pat were kind enough to carry the banner on the airplane somehow and participate in the banner parade with hundreds of other UU churches with their banners. They are required to create the banner themselves. You know, no professional work is done. And so it's a very interesting banner parade. I always like that. Okay?
Been a long time. Next one?
Yep, next.
Okay.
All right. In 1964, African-American songwriter and singer Sam Cooke penned the famous lines, "It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will." As Sam Cooke predicted almost 60 years ago, the civil rights movement of the 1960s did result in major change in the United States. With Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at the helm, the movement ultimately achieved victories with the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Many people of my generation fought long and hard for these victories, which actually began even earlier in 1954 with the Supreme Court's landmark ruling on the case of Brown v. the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. This ruling declared segregation of public schools to be a violation of the 14th Amendment and therefore unconstitutional. For many, though, change has been excruciatingly slow and has not fully addressed all the inequality and inequity in our country today. Indeed, although I was 6 years old when segregation was declared unconstitutional, I never attended a desegregated public school or college. Today, many, including the Article II Study Commission of the UUA, believe that the implementation of and subsequent absorption into American culture of these civil rights achievements and other much-needed societal change, such as LGBTQ+ rights, have not been fully recognized, or realized, I should say. What role the UUA and its member congregations will play in fully realizing future change was an important part of the General Assembly this year. Attendees on site and online, such as myself, reviewed and amended changes proposed for Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. Article 2 contains our 7 principles, which are probably still on the back of the order of service, if I'm not mistaken, and our 6 sources, among other important concepts of Unitarian Universalism. Changes adopted at this General Assembly included replacing the familiar principles and sources with values, covenants, and inspirations centered on love. However, all is not said and done. Additional amendments from congregations around the country are still possible. The final changes to Article 2 and I think Article 3, which has other important values in it, will be voted on at next year's General Assembly. What will the future bring? Some think change is bad. Some think change may not be needed and wish for everything to remain as it has been. But some, such as 86% of the delegates in attendance at this year's General Assembly, think that change is good and even necessary. What seems certain is that change is going to come. Thank you.
It's like a choreograph up here. We're going to bump into each other in a minute. I've known a lot of you for over 20 years, so you probably know why they put me up here. I'm a dissident. I'm moving against the tide. I'm going to describe for you what I saw at General Assembly last month, and it's absolutely the impressions of a dissident who likes to think of herself as anti-racist. I have been since I was 16, and I want change. I just don't want this particular change. So this is really a personal impression of GA, and Linda and Deb are going to, have very different things to say. I've been at UU for almost 50 years, and this is the 12th GA I've been to, but it's unlike any I've ever experienced. The post-pandemic GA of 23 was a cross between a revival and an echo chamber for the 2,700 attendants that were attending. Every utterance, every song, and almost every program was focused on change. That was the undeniable theme. And the change leaders were propagandizing for this particular change just about every minute. They were talking about the revision of Article 2, which is what Linda alluded to, which calls for the complete elimination of the 7 principles and adds a theological core to UUism, which it's never had before. This theological core is love, defined as dismantling oppression and racism.
Do you want me to go to the amendment?
No, not yet.
Oh,
no.
okay.
As I said, I'm opposed to these particular revisions, so I was looking forward to some debate and discussion in many assemblies about the proposals, but that did not happen. The only discussion of these really significant revisions of UUism was focused on the 15 prioritized amendments that were selected from the 80 that were submitted by delegates over this last year. And these amendments, only 5 of them passed. Delegates were able to speak pro or con about these, but so were designated members of the study commission of the UUA board, the people that wrote them. And predictably, none of those opposed by the commission passed. I still don't know why it was permitted for the writers to speak on them. As Deb put it, they definitely had their finger on the scale. They knew which ones they wanted and which ones they didn't. The entire revision amendment process has been criticized for a fairly lackadaisical surveying of congregations to find out what they wanted, and lack of transparency, as well as lack of the democratic process. Right now, the entire structure of the UUA is questionable in terms of democratic process. Let me just give you one example without getting too bureaucratic here. I can see people's eyes glazing over. For example, contrary to their own bylaws, they only had 1 candidate for president this year. You could vote or not vote. That was about it for her. The self-denomination of the board candidates and committees is questionable too, as are some restrictions on petition candidates. It's now, if you're not on the slate the board provides, it's really onerous to run on petition. But let's go back right quick to this GA of 2023. This national meeting goes from Wednesday through Saturday, or through Sunday, and what you learn during that time varies a lot with whatever workshops and programs that you seek out. There's often passionate and civil debate about issues, but not at this particular GA. There was no debate allowed. Disagreement and questioning was regarded as disrespectful, harmful, and racist. And this is what really bothered me. In her final address, the past president of the UUA talked about a small band of dissidents who she said were impeding progress on anti-racism. How dare they, she said to applause from the audience. Ad hominem attacks on anybody who opposed these revisions has been prevalent even before GA. One UU minister declared in a ministerial ordination sermon that if we didn't know what was happening, we should just pack our bags and leave now. if we didn't like what was happening. I'm sorry, that we should just leave. Reminded me of America, love it or leave it. Anyway, the delegates were told that a vote for the revision was just a vote to discuss it for next year. So I wasn't at all surprised when there was an 86% approval. Because if you're told that something's just open for discussion, and this was not the final vote is next year, then, you know, a lot of people would vote for it. Nobody paid much attention to the fact that it will take 15 congregations to amend these revisions. Otherwise, it can't be changed. So let's look, just the few minutes I've got left, let's look at a few of the revised sections. The 5 approved amendments that have been incorporated into what I'm showing you, but none has changed meaning significantly, so we're not going to go into those. Most of the amendments were just simple edits for clarification and moving some words and phrases around. If you'll show that first slide, this is the purposes section that you're looking at right now. This is what passed on June 24th. Oh, you've already got it up there, okay. The problem with the purposes section is that governance appears to have been flipped on its head. It once read, if you can see that the UU would be serving congregations. They were a service organization. But now it's going to engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. That's part of that text you're looking at. The relationship of the UUA and congregations appears to be much more hierarchical, and UUA would be at the top. Let's look at what the next one here. This is the values and covenants. This is what we spent some time talking about before, a few months ago here. This is the revised section that replaces the principles with the values and covenant. And if you remember, we had 6 values with some of the phrases from the principles tucked into them. For example, the principle that reads that we have a free and responsible search for truth and meaning is now embedded under pluralism, stating that we covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Unfortunately, the whole 6th principle is gone that talks about the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice. Okay, I know it's hard to read and process these, so.
Do you want the second one now?
Yeah, you can go ahead. That's the rest of it. That's the rest of the value section. I know we don't have time to do this because this is a sermon, so I'm going to stop there. I just want to say that the charge of the writers was to shorten this section, but it's approximately twice as long as the principles now. And don't forget that there's covenants attached to the values. This is the alert that I want to leave you with. These are not aspirational covenants like we said this morning, or even like the principles are. That's what we affirm and promote to do. We're told that these are covenants. We're told that they're there. These covenants are there to make sure we actually do the work. But we don't know how these covenants will be used to ensure accountability yet, and that's not going to be determined until the rewrite of Article 3, which can't even start until next year. So in addition to wiping out the principles, we're pledging to abide by as yet unspecified measures of accountability. And my reaction to that was, can you say buying a pig in a poke? That really scares me, that I'm pledging to be accountable in ways I don't even know yet. The dissenters who oppose this revision fear that those covenants are going to act as creeds and bind us to do the work that's determined by UUA or monitored by them. Now, you know, I've been wrong before. I could be wrong now. I may be mistaken in some of these speculations or some of these worries about where this is going. But the recommendations in the report widening the circle of the concern pretty much confirm a lot of these guesses. Okay, I know it was hard to see this text on this, and some of these changes are subtle, like the change to freedom of belief goes from individual freedom of belief to congregational freedom of belief. Part of this is because this particular strategy that UUA is using for anti-racism considers individualism to be part of white supremacy culture. So that's where that's coming from. And finally, there's a lot of concern about the source on section that takes out any mention of our history. So you'll have to look at those. When this thing comes out, you will have to look at these and see what you think, which is the important thing. And I want you to know that I'm gonna let Deb talk now, because you've been listening to the dismay of a dissident. What?
Have you or can you submit links to some of these amendments
Okay.
and conclusions for us?
You jumped ahead. If you've seen, okay. You've been listening to the dismay of a dissident, and you may disagree entirely, but you're also going to be wondering, what does it have to do with the UUCC? How's it going to impact us? Can't we continue to use the 7 principles, for example, and go on just the way we are now? Maybe that'll end up to be true, but the UUA now says that congregational autonomy is a myth. So I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure we will still have independence. So we don't have time to go any deeper into this today, but we're all on the Denominational Connections Committee. We're going to be putting links and articles and discussions and these revisions up on the website. So keep a lookout, and don't forget, we'll be there.
Okay. And all right. So, as you can expect, let's see, we agree and disagree on some things. I agree, let's see if I can get this back in here. Oh, I'll just hold it. Okay. So I agree with Pat that their thumb was definitely on the scale during the business resolutions, but not at all during the services. And yes, there was an underlying theme of change. There was also a strong emphasis on belonging. We've been through a lot with pandemic and more. Our congregations are struggling and experimenting and finding new ways to be together. And we can share lessons and learn from one another. Okay, Brian Broom was one of the early speakers, and he encouraged all of us to journal, to share our stories, and repeatedly said he would not have been so honest about his own shortcomings and those around him if he had thought that more than a handful might read his words. His conversation was powerful. His book was 1,000 times better. I bought it and read it, devoured it, yeah. It's funny, sad, beautifully written, enlightening, and revealing. He was a poor, dark black boy growing up in the small Rust Belt town of Warren, Ohio. And I know it well. Brian was told he was ugly. He liked to read, sing, dance, and play with dolls, and had no interest or skills in sports. His father and his peers promoted toughness above all other values to protect themselves against a hostile white majority, and literally tried to beat the softness out of Brian, hence the title of the book. Brian endeared himself to white kids with his dancing. He went to a big dance at the Red Caboose in a faraway white neighborhood, and when the dance was over, he was stranded in the middle of the night when not a single parent of his white friends would give him a ride home. Brian helped me viscerally understand intersectionality, carrying multiple identities at the same time, so each can amplify the others to make the utter loneliness, the sense of otherness, more unbearable. And making the challenge and promise of true welcome and true belonging even more powerful. And this is one of the key narratives I carried through the conference. There were good conversations at various workshops with folks working to rebuild their children and youth programs. So let me, okay. I think I might be able to do it from here. Many shared ideas about including children in services, like creating a welcoming place for them. And I was thinking, like, when that piano's gone, that might be a good spot. We discussed the many challenges parents face. Some mostly want adult time. Some invite elders to teach or be buddies to younger people over a span of time. There are many ways to be inclusive with our young families, making all feel they belong. Some mentioned the Our Whole Lives OWL program as an entry point. I'm so looking forward to our congregation hosting OWL again. And again, I was thinking about Brian Broom and so many like him. We at UUCC can save lives and heartache by providing holistic, accurate, affirming information about sexuality to our youth in the broader community. Now, there were quite a few young adults in attendance there, and much discussion on how to keep the cohort of young adults engaged beyond high school and bridging. The workshops, the disturbing statistics, and the moving bridging service were well planned. The young people storming the stage to protest the abrupt dismissal and banishment of one of the staff members who had worked with them to support the divestment initiative business resolution was unscripted by those in charge. The visible presence of UU Yarn, the Young Adult Revival Network, in the exhibit hall and throughout the assembly was energizing, and I believe that we've got that resource here. We are not alone in our opportunities and challenges. Next slide, let's see if I can get down here. Okay. The theme of belonging and inclusion beyond multi-generational continued with workshops and discussions on classism and anti-racism. And I'd really like our adult RE to host and facilitate the workshop on classism. And we've got some brochures back there about that. I believe most of us have some experience with poverty at some point in our lives, likely at different levels and different stages, but maybe some have not. There's thought-provoking questions with time for reflection, sharing, and deep discussions and group feedback, and that can help us all build empathy and belonging. I'd like us to explore a similar series of workshops and discussions on anti-racism, perhaps how to be positive anti-racist allies, not in the negative D'Angelo narrative, and in honest, affirming deep dive workshops. Shelley Tuckluck's anti-racism workshop, number 603, may be a good start, and maybe someone here knows of others, but it's clearly work we need to do together to be more welcoming. So please contact one of us delegates if you are interested in any of these on-demand resources, including a long list at the end of the presentation, which will soon be available on the website. Which brings me to welcoming and caring for one another. Okay, one more down, let's see. Oh, okay. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Our neighbor congregation in Atlanta, Georgia, developed the Radical Welcome webinar. The Radical Welcome extends well beyond the initial greeting at the door to their online presence, their publicity, their worship, their religious exploration, and more. And think again of Brian Broom in his early years, poor, black, and gay. Was there a UU in Warren, Ohio? Would he have been welcome there? How would he have known? Now think about Columbia, South Carolina. Think of those who are struggling. There are more resources now than Brian had, but as Linda McLeod, through the social action mentioned earlier, many still face family and societal rejection due to their choice to live their authentic lives as gay, trans, or non-binary, who may be dealing with homelessness, depression, and abuse due to their identity. And our welcoming presence and voice can literally save lives. And let's see, one more. And as we care for and welcome others, we must also care for each other. I recently heard from a long-term member who said she kept hearing, "We are like-minded," but had to ask herself, are we like-hearted? Are we caring? Are we deeply listening? Are we empathetic? Are we so caught up in sharing back our similar experience or opinion that we fail to hear what the other person is revealing, the vulnerability they are trusting us with? We are a community. We have experienced trauma. UUA and the General Assembly workshops and webinars are resources that we can lean on and learn from, but we will have to do the work of healing, of relearning how to be together in community, how to deeply listen and empathize with old friends and with new, with people with whom we have lots of shared experiences and those we don't. We have so many great adventures of learning ahead of us. In growing our community, we will likely find folks who are energized by social action. That's one of my passions, and we will give them voice and chances to act with us and even lead us in the broader community. We will find folks who are energized by music, also one of my passions, and we will include them as performers, choir members, participants, and more. We'll hopefully find folks who have a passion for technology, not one of my strong suits, to work and play with us, and people who want to teach and find community, helping in the kitchen, and so on. But let us also always be mindful. Everyone's presence is a gift. Whether serving on a committee or sitting in a pew, everyone's presence is a gift. Whether attending a concert or class or receiving needed comfort, everyone's presence is a gift. All are welcome here. All belong. We can be stronger, better, more welcoming. That is my major lesson from UUA. We can be like-minded most of the time with differences of opinion thoughtfully shared. We must be like-hearted all of the time. Thank you. I screwed it up.
Well,
Here we go.
okay. There we go. Okay. Thank you so much. Somehow my pages got flipped back to the beginning, so let me find my place. I think we have some closing music.
I invite you to join in singing our closing hymn number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. And please stand as you're willing and able to join in singing.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. And when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
Pat Mohr, you have the closing words. Okay, don't leave.
The closing words this morning are from Isaac Asimov. He says, "Your assumptions are your windows on the world. Scrub them off every now and then, or the light can't get in."
And now, Stephen, would you come forward to extinguish the chalice? Okay. All right. We extinguish the chalice at the end of our time here. May its flame glow gently in our hearts and light our paths as we leave this place until we are together again.
I invite you to join in singing our congregational benediction.
This concludes our service, and thank you again for joining us. Please join us in the back for refreshments, and I'd like to remind you that next week, retired psychologist Dr. Michael Sullivan will be sharing the insights and inspirations of a leading Unitarian minister about our experience with gratitude, and we thank him. See you next time.
And there is a table full of resources that we collected at General Assembly from lots of different committees and different groups that you can look at, but, take one if there's two. But anyway, thank you.